Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
What's next after the Germantown election? Tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, President and Executive Editor of the Daily Memphian. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by Mayor of Germantown, Mike Palazzolo. Thanks for being here again.
Glad to be here.
Along with Bill Dries, reporter with the Daily Memphian. So I'm going to start actually with Bill because the results of this very close election, which we'll talk about that in a moment, haven't been certified, haven't been finalized. So Bill, why don't you just run us through where we are in terms of the count in the Germantown mayor's race?
There is, as of the unofficial vote count, which has not been certified, not been audited at this point, there is a 127 vote margin in the mayor's race between Mayor Palazzolo and his challenger, John Barzizza.
Okay, and there is the chance that there are provisional votes that are being counted as we tape this on Tuesday. They are total provisional votes are between 75 and 85, I think, if I'm right.
In Germantown.
In Germantown, thank you. Which wouldn't erase that margin. There is the potential. There are no automatic recounts. When people have been watching certain national races, there are no automatic recounts that are triggered. There is the potential that a challenger could go to Chancery Court and try to get a hand recount or some sort of recount done, correct?
Right. That would come after the Election Commission meets, which it meets Monday, November 26th, to certify all of the results in the November election. If someone wanted to challenge any of the results in any of the races, at that point after that, they would then go to Chancery Court, and the standard under state law is that the person challenging would have to make the case that there were voting irregularities or that there was some kind of problem with a number of ballots, and the number of ballots would have to be enough to change the outcome of the election.
All right, and we will turn to you with that setup. Just to be fair to the challenger, in a very close race. Your take on, let me start with your take on where you are in terms of waiting for its certification and so on. I mean, are you presuming you have won?
Sure. Well, I mean, I have a lead, so it's in a good position to be, quite honestly. And, you know, there's a process in place that the Election Commission has to go through. And so I wait for that November 26th date. And when it's certified, then I guess that would trigger another process. And then when that's complete, there will be a swearing-in ceremony, an inauguration on the 17th of December in our city for all elected folks. So, you know, right now it's somewhat business as normal in my office as far as meeting with constituents and planning meetings and those type things. But, you know, I'll be honest with you, I mean, I anticipate those milestone dates that Bill just went over to come and go. Regardless
of that, and let's assume for a second that the lead continues and you go into what would be your second term, am I right?
That's correct.
It's a very close margin. It's 127 votes, give or take, when they finalize it. Is there a message for you in that? Even though you are winning, is there a message that makes you reconsider some of the things you've done and some of the things you campaigned on?
Well, I mean, it makes me think about the value of every conversation. You know, every vote counts, every person counts, every action counts. And, you know, moving forward, you know, I think anyone that wins by a narrow margin, I lost my first election in 2002 by around 400 votes. So I've been in, I guess, a somewhat equal predicament. And so, yeah, it makes you always be introspective and think about, you know, how you move forward, you know, and how you bring a community together as well.
Was the message you heard from people or heard in this close race was what? I mean, what was really that caused, what was the issue or issues in Germantown that caused us to be so close from your perspective?
Sure, you know, and I've been catching up on my Behind the Headlines. I've watched a couple of episodes in the last few days because I've been a little bit busy with running for re-election, but I think you had Mayor Strickland on the other episode or two ago, and you mentioned about striking balance in our community, and as you were talking about our election in Germantown and some of the others around the county. And I think, you know, the balance of growth is what I heard the most. And, you know, and it's a tremendous argument to have, and it's something that we need to have a conversation about in our community. We've had a pattern of growth that was initiated right around the turn of the last century, and our smart growth program and zoning and codes and ordinance have all been ratified and endorsed by the prior mayor and somewhere between 12 and 15 aldermen over that almost 18-year period. And so, I think we need to take a look at how we grow. We want to be thoughtful in our growth in our city. We want to be managed and controlled. But at the end of the day, and I think you use the term, balancing everything. If you want state-of-the-art school district, if you want a new police district as well, if you want a premium ambulance service, those things cost money. And, the value proposition is alive and well in every community in this country where people need to feel that they're getting value for their tax dollars. And in Germantown, we provide premium services. And so I never hear people giving pushback against, I'm not getting value for my tax dollar. But they also have to understand that it comes at a certain cost, and that cost can be growth at times.
Bill.
So, Mike, did this feel like a close race? Does it ever feel like a close race when you're out there so focused on what you're doing?
Well, it's interesting. This is my sixth election, and I'm not a warrior by any means, but I've knocked on literally thousands of doors. And I started in February going door to door and had great conversations with people. And, you work very diligently to try to get message out and try to, be an active listener. And I know, to be honest with you, it's hard for me sometimes to have a gut feeling. I know that I have felt nervous when I have won by 75-25 margin as an alderman, and I won as the mayor in 2014 by 8 or 10%. And so you never really kind of know what the public completely thinks at times. And in our community, we don't do polls and those type things. It's not at that level of political service from a fundraising standpoint. So, I think, the message, though, is loud and clear, is that, our people want to be heard, and they will be heard.
Mm-hmm. And I've often heard this axiom that there are two ways to run. One is as if you're unopposed, and the other is if you're 10 points behind.
Well, that's exactly right. And again, I started knocking on doors in February as an incumbent. I wore out some sneakers. I've raised more money than I've ever raised before. I did commercials for the first time, did a billboard for the first time. I would have never imagined that as a young alderman 15 or 16 years ago, or as an incumbent mayor. But the paradigm has shifted some in the suburbs, and I think we've seen somewhat of a little bit of anti-incumbency in the sense. And that's part of what we have to face as office holders.
About how many people are eligible to vote in Germantown?
29,000. We had right at 70% turnout, which is somewhat a little bit above normal. But in our community, we do turn out to vote, especially in presidential elections. So this was a pretty good turnout. We had right at 20,250 or so people vote of those 29,000 registered voters. I mean, that's pretty strong.
And you talked about the money. How much money did you raise and spend, give or take?
Well, I haven't finalized all the data and everything, but probably about 4 times what I did in 2014.
But just for perspective,
right around from $30,000 or so in 2014 to about $120 in 2018. I mean, that's not the norm, and I'm afraid that.
Do you think it is the new norm, though?
Yes. Well, I think things have escalated, and in the old days where I know I was very proud at one time, I only received and accepted campaign contributions of $100 or less. Unless you are independently wealthy, that's not something that's sustainable in the future.
Yeah, Bill.
So, where do you think Germantown is in terms of the aldermen?
Well, currently in this last election, the 3 incumbents that were in office all were successful in winning their seats, and one would be our vice mayor and alderman won re-election. Then our school board chair won as well. So incumbency did prevail in Germantown. We had 2 seats that were open, and so we have a new alderman, and we'll have a new school board member as well. And we embrace those newly elected people. I have a meeting later on today with our alderman-elect and with our school board-elect individual as well. So we hope to build a great team effort. Germantown's in a great spot right now, in a great place from an educational standpoint, a physical health standpoint, and we're very much a community of choice. People are really looking to move to Germantown because of our schools and our public safety.
Mm-hmm. And the discussion among the aldermen has kind of reflected the ongoing debate that's underway in Germantown, and there's every reason to believe that that's going to continue at some level.
Well, I fully expect it. You know, I don't think a community necessarily rests well with 5-0 votes all the time on a city council. I think some CEOs or mayors would love to have that. But if you have 4-1 votes or 3-2 votes, or occasionally things are not, you know, in the favor of the administration, that's fine as well. You know, we want to make sure that we offer, again, those premium services I mentioned earlier, and our board, our legislative body, you know, they have to be able to embrace what our administration brings forward or help us on a different direction. At the end of the day, you know, the mayor, again, is the CEO of the city or chairman of a board, and our aldermen are the legislative branch. They really decide everything. I don't have a vote. I mean, I voted once in 4 years to break a tie, so it's very, very rare. You know, in Collierville, the mayor votes on all measures, and in other municipalities, it's a little different set of rules. We have somewhat of a weak mayor system in Germantown, so the strength and the real power in our city and the direction comes from our aldermen, our legislative branch.
Do you anticipate any changes within your administration?
No, we are, like I said, our city is in great financial condition. We lowered taxes last year. We are still one of only 58 dual AAA bond rated cities in the country. We continue to win all kinds of awards of excellence as it comes to financial planning. Our police department, you know, public safety crime was down last year, but we're adding an 8th police district in my next term of office. That's not because we have a crime problem, is that we always have to stay ahead of a crime because it comes from sometimes from our border areas. And so, you know, our ambulance service, we're looking to build a new fire station. You know, we've got a great team in place, so I will not be making any changes.
One of those challenges you talk about, or one of the things for people outside Germantown who may not be aware of the moratorium on apartment, multifamily development. That was put in, what, a year ago?
Approximately right at a year ago.
It's an 18-month moratorium, no more apartment developments. There were some very big ones. Certainly the development community was not so happy with that decision. But why, for people outside Germantown, why would you do that? I mean, because in contrast, you look at certain communities, you know, Lakeland celebrating this huge, you know, Lake District development that's about to start. Memphis having, you know, multifamily developments. We've done a number of shows about this in the urban core for the first time in forever. Downtown development. I mean, people celebrating and going out of their way to get that multifamily development. But Germantown put a stop to it.
Sure. Well, I'll give you a little bit of history. I spent 23 or so years in commercial banking, and I consider myself very, very conservative, very, very financially conservative. And, you know, and I'm also very data driven. You know, last fall, the fall of 2017, we were being inundated with requests for multifamily in our city. And, you know, as a mayor, you can't arbitrarily tell a developer no, because if a land is zoned a certain way, they have to go through a process. You can't decline before an application is even made. We would be seriously, you know, breaking all kinds of laws. And so, you know, my instinct told me that when we had, again, you know, proliferation of requests and being inundated with requests, that our community can't handle 5 or 6 multifamily apartment developments all at one time. We've had apartments in our community for over a half a century. We have some legacy properties that are 50 years old. We have some newer properties that were built in the 90s, and they were all very stable. They all continue to be sustainable, and they get refreshed over the years. But when you have that many coming at you at one time, we needed to get a moratorium to kind of take check of what is a proper number for our community. Right now, multifamily apartments makes up about 4% of our complete and total housing stock. And so I don't think our people want a mayor that just makes gut decisions. We're going to produce, you know, somewhat of a white paper that will show our aldermen these are the impacts, and then the alderman can decide on how to move forward.
For those not close to it, I mean, again, some people would just say, well, wait, I mean, if the money's there and private enterprise says, hey, you know, the land's there, the money's there, they've identified the demand, why is it up to the city to say no to that? What are the risks? What are the downsides to having, say, 3 to 5 multifamily units?
Well, that's a great follow-up question. It's all about infrastructure and how it affects our infrastructure, whether that's water, sewer, police, school district. And so, you know, if you have an influx of population quickly, how will it impact, again, those different services we provide the community? And, you know, we're a community that's completely landlocked. So our land is very precious. We're fully annexed. We have very small tracts of land left in our city. So we've got to be very judicious on how we make sure that's zoned properly. You know, I think people embrace multifamily as it relates to condos and townhouses and brownstones. They may not embrace it as much as apartments. We've got a great development in our central business district called Thornwood, which is a $200 million village that will be finished probably in the early spring of this year. And it has luxury apartments that probably are not going to put any strain on our school district because the price points are so high that, and the size of the apartments are of a fact of they're more quaint and they're more geared to seniors or empty nesters. It's probably not going to have that strain, but again, that's instinctual. That's me making an anecdotal definition and not necessarily having the data points that our community needs.
And before I go back to Bill, just again, for people outside Germantown who don't understand, when you talked about landlocked, and you talked about not having that much developable land left, I mean, Germantown in many ways, as you said, is in an enviable position financially. But, and you've been on the show talking about this before, there's no real no sizable industrial base, tax base in Germantown.
We have no manufacturing.
No manufacturing.
Yeah.
It's the amount of commercial space. A lot of people associate Germantown with some of the shopping centers and so on are there. But the percentage of your tax revenue that comes from residential is extremely high, right?
We're about 10 or 12% of our land mass is commercial. The other 90%, 88 to 90% is all residential. And so that's never going to change. Again, we have very small pockets, a commercial central business district, and in 4 gateway regions. We have a healthcare corridor, but we have no industrial manufacturing, and we never will. We don't have any car dealerships, any of those type of things that are mass producers of revenue for a city. And so as I mentioned the Thornwood example, that's 28 acres in our central business district right across the street from our municipal square. It makes up about 0.002% of our land mass, 28 acres compared to about 12,750 acres. And that's going to produce revenue of about $1.5 million a year in taxes for our people. To put that in perspective, our new elementary school in the southeast portion of Germantown, the debt service is $1.45 million. That structure will be there for 75 years. That little 28 acres paid for our new school. So, you know, those type of things are quantifiable, they're measurable, and they're real things that people can grab hold of, and they're important for our community. Now that Thornwood has residential, it's got multifamily, it's got lodging, it's got retail, it's got restaurants, and it has residential as well. So those type of things are kind of what we desire in the community.
Bill.
So is the dilemma or the discussion here the rise of multi-use?
Well, I would say yes. You know, being more of a, again, bedroom community, I think people over the years have told us in citizen surveys they would love to have premium shopping experiences. They love to have white tablecloth. They love to have choices in retail. We have Trader Joe's now and Whole Foods, and we have a Container Store coming. We have this Thornwood Village I keep alluding to that'll have premium restaurants. But with that comes a certain amount of growth. And so, you know, again, I keep using the term striking the balance, but, you know, part of that is being able to get your arms around and feel for these type of projects. Thornwood had an open house 2 weeks ago. They probably had 1,000 people there, a lot of inquisitive people wanting to take the tours and that type of thing. I think when people see that more, and again, it's in the central business district, it's not in the heart and soul of our 125 or so neighborhoods. It'll be an amenity people will be thankful for.
Right, but because in some places when you say multifamily, people immediately have a vision of these large apartment complexes that were built in the 60s and 70s everywhere, and they react against that immediate image that
Sure.
that
Well, and I
comes to
think
mind.
what we see in our community, you know, we have people that choose that type of lifestyle. They don't have to settle for that type of lifestyle. And I think what the market is bringing is more the village concept in high-end urban or suburban areas. And so not the patio form of the sprawling apartment complex, but the more dense in a building. And, you know, that's more serviceable, it's more compact, and it's generally built in villages. You know, I've been on the show before where we talked about the town center that was proposed in our central business district. That developer has left that project. You know, you have to have places to live in villages. And I think the standalone multifamily is what fears most of our residents, and also, in essence, I have a fear for that as well. When you have a sense of place, sense of life, that drives a lot more activity and life in an area. You don't get that in, you know, 20 acres off to the side that just has apartments with nothing else around it. That's not really the model that we're looking for.
So as the school system grows in enrollment, how do you kind of pump the brakes on that? Do you do it through development, or do you just hit a point where you say this is all we can take in the school system?
Well, we've always talked about right-sizing our district from day one, and we're in year 5 now. I'm pretty proud that I had something to do with forming our own district as an alderman and then as mayor. And so we have continually asked our friends at our school district, our school board, right-size your district, right-size your district. So they have begun to change their transfer policies, and so they can kind of control the spigot, so to speak, on people that are coming into our district that are not residents. And so we can balance that with the growth that we have. We project as a community to be at full build out maybe in 20 to 25 years. And our population,
full build out?
Full build out of our whole community.
Okay.
And so in 20 or 25 years, we project to be up to 45,000 people. We're at 40,123. That's only about a 12% increase. And so we're building a new school right now, an elementary school, that takes all the pressure off of the K through 5 model. And our next pinch point will be the middle school level. We've already set aside money in our budget to add a wing at Houston Middle School. And so our high school is about 500 or so seats under capacity. We have non-residents that are there. So as they grade out, we have natural ability to grow into the high school level. And so we're in really good shape. We had a little bit of a crowding issue, which was organic and a great problem to have, to be honest with you. And we've corrected that problem with building a new school, and people are excited about that.
Mm-hmm. So talk to me about how the 3 Gs figure into this. Germantown Elementary, sure. Germantown Middle, and Germantown High School, which are, as we speak, part of Shelby County Schools, sure. and not the Germantown Municipal School District.
Well, you know, we made an offer a couple years ago for all 3, and it's a pretty, I think, robust offer. And so that was passed on by SCS leadership. We decided to build our own school. We continue, matter of fact, later on this week, I have a meeting with our 3G principals. I meet with them twice a year just to let them know they're part of our community, even though they're operated by another entity outside our city limits. We'll always have conversations with the leadership at SCS. We would love to be able to acquire those properties, or at least work into some type of long-term phase out of having SCS in our community. We're not there yet, but I plan to make that a priority in my second term as mayor.
Do the attendance numbers for those 3 schools affect the plan that you talked about earlier in terms of the spigot for all of this? Yeah,
not really. You know, they're completely self-sustained from their own district. We still have some of our residents that go to those schools for various reasons. Germantown High School has a tremendous international baccalaureate program. They've got a very good performing arts program. All 3 of those schools are optional schools now, so they're all operating on transfer into those school areas. And so, the need for those schools right now for any type of growth for our district, that's not there right now.
Mm-hmm. A couple of minutes left. There is a new county mayor, Lee sure. Harris, who was on the show recently. Have you met with Lee? I mean, you've just, again, back to the beginning of the show, your election was very close, hasn't sure. been certified yet. You're really just coming out of campaign mode. But what is your relationship like with Lee Harris?
Well, we've already met with him. Mayor Harris has reached out to all the municipal mayors and had one-on-one meetings. He's also met with all the superintendents of the school districts, the municipal school districts. I have a relationship with him when he was a state senator. Very easy to work with. You know, we brought some legislation to the General Assembly that at that time Senator Harris was favorable for in Germantown, and so we have a great working relationship already.
What do you need from the county government?
Well, county is very important. You know, it provides a lot of services from, even though we're self-sustained from a public safety standpoint, they still bring health services. Of course, they manage our county jail, and they manage the sheriff's department. Also, very much important, they bring us school funding. You know, the state gives us the largest amount. We don't get very much federal dollars. The county gives us the second most amount, and then we have a smaller amount from the municipal government, from Germantown. So it's very important to be able to have a great relationship with our county mayor.
You talked about county mayor, but you mentioned Memphis Mayor Strickland. Mm-hmm. Germantown's relationship to Memphis, I mean, in some ways, and we've talked about this sure. before, but and you've been involved with the Urban Land Institute and the Region Smart Summit, which brings, mm-hmm. 20-something mayors from all sure. across the region together. To what extent is you've talked about a lot of the successes of Germantown, and Germantown, exploded in population in part as people were leaving the city and drawn to a lower tax environment. Maybe it was safety, whatever, the schools. Sure. But to what extent is the health or lack of health of Memphis, is Germantown tied to that? Well, or is it totally its own island?
No, many of our residents work in the city of Memphis or work in the region. We're not necessarily an employment hub in our city. We're more where people come to go to bed and raise a family. So I think the importance of having great relationship with the city mayor and also with regional leaders is very important for Germantown. I've used this as an example for many years. We're very excited to help promote the Lamar Avenue corridor because it's a great multimodal transportation hub. That doesn't really affect Germantown, but we have been willing to advocate for that at the state level for funding with TDOT and other groups because it'll be good for the region. So things that are good for the region are good for Germantown. We are much of a, again, self-sustaining community. We do not rely on the county very much, and we do not rely on the city, but we want to work as partners.
All right, we will leave it there. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Bill, and thank you for joining us. Join us again next week.